It's a big night for democracy here in France because one of the primary debates is taking place now. This is being done by the French Socialist Party to choose the best runner they can find for the race to get into the Élysée. That's to be president of France and defeat Nicolas Sarkozy in the big vote-off next May. James Creedon, of course, canny lad that he is, has been observing what people are saying online. Spill the beans, James.
All right, well, it's an interesting one, Mark, because first of all, we can't show live pictures until the debate finishes in about 15 minutes time, so I should have come in about half an hour, but anyway, here I am. Right. So it was a two-hour debate. This was the third of them, and as you can see here on Le Monde and various other websites, the live blogs have been trying to cover it bit by bit. Now, it was a debate in three parts: governance, retirement and health, and education and public services. So they're getting into the nitty-gritty, really, of governance and, I suppose, the left-leaning issues. So in any case, the thing is, they've all signed a pact. The six people who've been involved in this debate have signed a pact. So whoever gets the actual gig has to kind of put the programme that they have signed as socialists into place. So they have very little room for manoeuvre. Actually,
so there's going to be no change in your mind if you get the nod.
Right.
No.
So it's really minor differences between them,
and
differences in style. In fact, is a big part of it. So it's mainly between François Hollande. There's a photo of him here. He's been going through a big image change in the last number of years.
He's lost a lot of weight, hasn't he?
He has indeed. And he's trying to present himself as the normal president, I suppose, to contrast himself from Nicolas Sarkozy, who has had a bit of a bling-bling image in the past. So, and he's been in the past debates, because this is the third primary debate that they've had in the last few weeks, he's been trying to address the French people generally, not just the left-leaning public who are going to vote in this primary vote next Wednesday. So he's kind of trying to rise above all this petty socialist politics, as he'd like to have it perceived. Whereas Martine Aubry, she is kind of trying to target specific categories of voter. Women, for example, also people working in hospitals, in the health sector, teachers. So she is a much more targeted game. He's like, oh, I'm above all of this stuff. I'm talking to the French people generally. I'm already past the primary stage.
They're both pretty human candidates, aren't they? Clearly, Hollande's struggling with his weight. Martine Aubry's had a few issues with with drink in the past as well. It's well publicised.
They're sort of, I suppose, likeable candidates. And in any case, what's interesting about this particular whole process is viewed from the US, where they've had primary systems for a long time. This is in it's the French version of Slate. They think that this is really dated. And there's this guy, it's quite funny, his name is James Traube. His article was translated from Foreign Policy, an American magazine, for the French version of Slate. And he says this is like something out of the 80s. If you look at primary debates...
Back to the Future.
That's exactly what they said. It's like a mixture between Back to the Future and that 70s show. And he said the primaries debates in the US in the 80s were something like this. You had all the candidates in a TV studio, not that many members of the public, and they were all being very courteous to each other. And now I suppose it's very different in the US when you see primary debates, as we're seeing them at the moment.
Sure.
They're much more animated occasions. There's a lot more members of the public involved, and it can be a little bit, I suppose, messier and nastier at times than it is in France. So he's looking at this a little bit bemused and saying really that the French seem to be quite wide-eyed and excited about a process that the Americans are.
This is the French philosophy of debate, isn't it? This is the nation that brought great philosophers to the world, of course, and they want to sort of reflect that, I suppose, in an ordered and mannered discussion, which is boring to watch.
Well, certainly from an American point of view, they're like, oh, this is very dull stuff. Now, I suppose elsewhere in the media at the moment, what they're doing is they're looking at various parts of the public in France and how they might vote for these candidates on the left, because it's a vote that'll be open to anybody who is a socialist, or anybody who declares himself a socialist.
So you need to be a card-carrying member of the party.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this article in the Nouvel Observateur is looking at the 6 candidates on the Bobo meter. Now, I suppose that's a very French expression.
Okay, what's a Bobo?
A Bobo is a sort of, I suppose, a trendy person, a hippie,
trendy lefty.
Hipster.
Trendy lefty.
Trendy lefty. Okay. There you go. And so they'd be the kind of urban vote, and usually they would vote for the left in France, the Bobos. So they say that actually François Hollande is the guy who is going to get the Bobo vote. He's kind of urban, talking about creating 60,000 jobs in education. That appeals a lot to this kind of lefty urban vote.
Ségolène Royal, is she out of the picture, really?
It's quite interesting, actually, because Ségolène Royal,
she stood last time, didn't she?
She was actually the candidate of choice for the Bobos last time out, but since then, because she stood against Sarkozy in 2007, this time around she's kind of targeting more the rural vote, more of a traditional vote. Okay. So she only got 8 out of 20 in this particular Bobo meter. François Hollande, her former partner, is the favourite. He got 18 out of 20. So we'll have to stay tuned, I suppose, next Wednesday and see what happens in this gripping competition between the socialists.
Exciting stuff. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. I'll ask you next week. James Creedon there with Media Watch. Stay with us. We've got much more to come here, live from Paris on France 24.